Thank y'all for tuning into Primitive Organic Gardening Guitar today. I was about to make some pickles, and I figured I would do a quick video update. I've done a couple videos in the past about how I make pickles. Sometimes I do vinegar pickles, sometimes I do lacto fermented pickles. Today I'm doing vinegar pickles, but I got a lot of pickles today, a lot of cucumbers to pickle. And I figured, I get a lot of questions about how to pickle cucumbers. And I also see a lot of mistakes out there. I see recipes online, I see YouTube videos where, they show some less than perfect ways to make pickles. Anybody can make pickles. All you gotta do is take a cucumber and throw it in some vinegar, right? But there's good, better, and best, and then there's perfect. And so today I'm gonna show y'all how to make perfect pickles. Not just good pickles, not just great pickles, perfect pickles. I'm also going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that people make when they turn cucumbers into pickles. There are a lot of mistakes out there, so we're going to go over how to not make those. First one I would say is variety selection, but I'm actually not going to include that in my list of 5 because some people don't have control over, what seeds they're able to get, what varieties of pickles they can find at the farmer's market. But there are pickling cucumbers and there are salad cucumbers. And if you're going to make pickles, it's better to start with a pickling variety of cucumber. Yes, I have made pickles out of salad cucumbers, and yes, I have put pickling cucumbers in salads. But if you're trying to make perfect pickles, start with a variety of cucumber. It's a pickling variety. I'm using the variety that's called National Pickling. It's an old 1800s heirloom, and the fruits are pretty standard. It's what you would expect for a pickling cucumber. They got some cool bumps on the sides. Pretty vigorous plants, tend to be fairly high yielding. I'm not going to include variety selection as a mistake in my top 5 list. But anyway, if you're going to make pickles, try to find a variety of cucumber that is a pickling variety. The biggest mistake I see with people making pickles is not using fresh cucumbers. If you're using cucumbers that are from the grocery store and they've been sitting in your fridge for a day or two, and they were sitting on the shelf at the store for a day or two, and they were sitting on a truck for a day or two, and they were sitting in the pack house for a day or two, and they were left on the plants for a day or two past their point of ripeness, you're not going to have perfect cucumbers. You might get decent pickles. You're not going to have perfect pickles. If you want perfect pickles, you need to use ripe, fresh cucumbers. Cucumbers that you pulled off the plant like an hour ago. Don't pick the cucumbers on a Monday and then decide you're going to make pickles on a Wednesday. Pick the cucumbers off the plants and within 30 minutes or an hour, pickle them. That's the biggest mistake, not using fresh cucumbers. If you want your pickles to be crisp, use fresh cucumbers straight off the plant. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, pickling things with water. A lot of big companies like to use water and preservatives in their pickles because it's cheaper than using vinegar. If you want perfect pickles, don't put any water in the brine. Use all vinegar, straight vinegar. The exception to that rule is if you're doing lacto fermented pickles, which is a completely different process using salt water. If you're making vinegar pickles, don't put any water in the brine. Use all vinegar. That's mistake number 2, people adding water to their pickles. Mistake number 3, not using herbs and spices. A lot of people think they can throw a cucumber in a jar, a little bit of vinegar, and a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of salt, and call it a pickle. Pickles need to be spiced. The best spice for pickles is dill. Grow your own dill. If you're not growing dill, find some other spices to throw in there. I grow dill, but I also put a lot of other spices from the garden into the cucumbers. I use dill, I use mint, I use oregano, sometimes I'll use parsley, throw some basil in there, some chives, some leeks, some onions, some garlic, some leaves off the lemon trees. Find some spicy stuff to put in there. You can't just throw cucumbers in a jar full of vinegar and salt and call it a pickle. It needs to be spiced, particularly with dill, but use other things. That's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 that I see with pickles is people not using good salt. They'll just buy the cheapest, absolute cheapest salt they can find. Try to use some decent salt once in a while. get you some Himalayan salt. I used to use sea salt, but now they say the ocean's full of plastic, so I don't use no sea salt no more. I just use pink Himalayan salt. But yeah, don't use like the cheapest, absolute cheapest salt you can find. If you're going through all the trouble of growing your own cucumbers, growing your own dill, growing your own herbs and spices, put some nice salt in there. And I don't know if that was 4 or 5. I feel like I said 5 things, but I only listed 4 because I probably repeated number 3 twice. Also, try to use some good vinegars when you can. I'm poor, so a lot of times I make pickles with just straight white vinegar. When I can afford it, I'll throw in a little bit of apple cider vinegar. But if you're fancy, you can use all kinds of cool stuff. You can use like red wine vinegar. You can use balsamic vinegar. You can use rice vinegar. You can use amber vinegar, which is like rice vinegar with sugar and fish and anchovies and all kinds of other cool stuff. Whatever you want. But yeah, so now we're gonna make our pickles. So I started with these quart mason jars, and I got the cucumbers that I just pulled off the bush about an hour ago. I don't ever bother to wash anything because I don't care. I'm just gonna wipe off the cucumbers with my shirt here. Some people like to, cut off the tip there. You don't have to. Cut off the tips if you want to. Some people peel them. You don't really need to peel them. Most of the vitamins are going to be in the skin anyway. Oh, I just remembered tip number 5. Tip number 5, the biggest mistake people make is not using fresh cucumbers. But one mistake that I do see with cucumbers is people not adding tannins. What are tannins? Well, it doesn't really matter what tannins are. You're not a chemist. You're trying to make pickles. So you don't really need to know what tannins are, but you need to know that you need to add them. I think that was tip number 5. Tip number 1 was not using fresh cucumbers. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 1, not using fresh cucumbers. Mistake number 2, using water. Mistake number 3, I don't remember what mistake number 3. Oh, not using herbs. Mistake number 4, not using a good salt. Mistake number 5, not using good vinegar. I guess we'll call it mistake number 6, not adding tannins. If you want your pickles to be crispy, you must add tannins. Tannins, where can you get them? You can get them from grapes, or you can get them from oaks. There's probably some other sources of tannins, but wild grapes grow everywhere all over this country. A lot of people have cultivated grapes. Go get you some grape leaves. Drop the grape leaves in the bottom of the jar. The grape leaves will add tannins. The tannins will make your pickles extra crispy. If you're interested in the exact mechanisms of action, you can ask a chemist. I'm not a chemist. You can also use oak. I usually put them at the bottom. So here's a grape leaf. Look at that grape leaf. Is that a pretty good grape leaf? It's a muscadine grape leaf, but it's a grape leaf. We're going to take the grape leaf and put it in a jar. If you didn't have any grape leaves, instead of using grape leaves, you could use an oak leaf. Put the oak leaf in the jar. Now you want to add some herbs and spices. We got some leeks. In addition to our leeks, we got some mint. We're going to put some mint in the jar. We also got some dill because dill is the most important ingredient in pickles. We're going to put some dill in the jar. We're going to put some more dill in the jar. And then we're going to put some more dill in the jar. And we're also going to put some oregano in the jar. Look at all that oregano. It's beautiful, isn't it? We'll take some oregano and put the oregano in the jar. And now that we got the grape leaf, the oak leaves, the mint leaves, the leeks, the oregano, and the dill, now we're going to finish cutting up our cucumbers. Cutting off the heads and the tails like some people like to do. You don't have to do that, but if you want to do it, you can. I like to slice them long and thin, but you can also slice them, horizontally if you want to. You can do whatever you like there. Press it all down. Do one more. Oh, this one's got a caterpillar in it. I don't know if y'all see that, but there's a caterpillar in this cucumber. That's because I'm a lazy gardener and I don't go out and cover the cucumbers at night, and I don't spray them with nothing. If you want your cucumbers to be perfect and you don't want any caterpillars in them, you got to cover them with net every single night so the moths don't get to them. If you don't cover them, you're going to have to spray them with some kind of organic pesticide like BT or spinosad. You could probably spray a little bit of neem oil, but I don't know how effective it would be. Alright, we're going to put one more cucumber in here. Cut off the head, cut off the tail. We're going to slice it real thin there. Oh, this one's got a caterpillar in it too. This doesn't look like the caterpillar made it too far in here though. We're just going to cut that out. Cut that out. Caterpillars are probably not a big deal anyway. Oh, you see that little nasty caterpillar? I don't know if y'all can even see that. There's a nasty little caterpillar right there. The good news is caterpillars don't generally survive vinegar. Vinegar tends to kill a lot of things, including caterpillars. Also, caterpillars aren't going to hurt you. If you're afraid of caterpillars, you're probably not going to do well when society collapses. Oh, I dropped that one on the ground. It's alright, not too worried about it. Dirt and bacteria and all that's good for your immune system. So if you drop your cucumbers on the ground while you're trying to pickle them, don't worry about it. Just put them in a jar. All the salt and vinegar you're going to add, you're going to be fine. So I think we've probably reached the limit with this jar. I don't think we can fit any more cucumbers in here. We already added all our herbs and spices like we talked about, but we're going to add some more dill just because dill is the greatest thing on the planet. Maybe put a little bit of black pepper in here. That's optional. You don't have to put black pepper in there if you don't want to. We talked about probably not using cheap salt if you can afford to use nicer salt, but I'm kind of poor, so I'm going to put some cheap salt in here. I'm also going to use a little bit of nice Himalayan pink salt. Then we talked about all the different vinegars you can use. Notice I'm not adding sugar. That was the other mistake I was going to talk about. A lot of big companies and home gardeners, they add all kinds of things to pickles that you don't need to add. They add sugar and they add food coloring and all kinds of weird preservatives. I hope the camera wasn't off for too long. I just noticed it was kind of down. So hopefully y'all can see that. We talked about how we added our fresh cucumbers, not old cucumbers from the store that sat on a truck and sat on a shelf. Fresh cucumbers straight off the plant, straight into the jar. We did not add any water. We used straight vinegar. We added plenty of herbs and spices like dill, oregano, mint, garlic, onion, leek, all kinds of stuff like that. We also made sure to use some nice salt. We're not just using the cheapest salt we can find. We're going to use some nice salt. We use some nice vinegar. And we put tannins in here. We put grape leaves and oak leaves in here for tannins. And the tannins will make your pickles crispy. Now that we did all that, a lot of times I'll start with white vinegar. I'll add, 3/4 white vinegar. And then I'll add a little bit of cider vinegar. If I could afford it, I would use all cider vinegar, but I can't afford it. It's like 10 times the price of white vinegar. Yeah, so we filled up our jars all the way to the brim there. Then we're going to put our lids on, shake them up, and add just a little bit more Himalayan pink salt. Put our lid on there, shake it up. And I usually just let these sit in the fridge for about, 4 or 5 days. You could probably let them sit on the counter since they're straight vinegar and salt, but they're not technically shelf stable because they're not pressure canned. I'll just put them in the fridge, let them sit in the fridge for a couple days, and then, when it's time to have dinner or snack or something, I'll just pull a pickle out. So we got one more jar to fill. Just kind of for a quick recap, if you weren't paying attention from the beginning of the video, we're going to try to do this next one as fast as we possibly can. What are the biggest mistakes people make when they're making pickles? Not using fresh cucumbers. You need to use fresh cucumbers straight off the plant, straight off the vine. Don't put them in the fridge. Don't buy them from the store. Get pickles, cucumbers, straight off the vine. Second mistake people make. Not using all vinegar. If you're putting water in your pickles, you're not doing it right. Don't put any water in the jar. Use straight vinegar. Third mistake people make, not using herbs and spices. You gotta put herbs and spices. Garlic, onion, leeks, vinegar, vinegar's not a spice, mint, dill, oregano, chives. Those are your spices. Parsley. You also got to make sure you use some good salt and some good vinegar. You also got to put tannins in there. We're going to do tannins first. This is an oak leaf. Oak leaves are a good source of tannins. Put the oak leaf in the jar. Mint. Oh no, this isn't mint. This is a lemon balm. Lemon balm's a good spice too. Put the lemon balm in the jar. We got another grape leaf. Extra tannins. Make our pickles extra crispy. If you don't have any grape leaves, put some oak leaves in there.